Hello and welcome to another episode of the DTF podcast here on the Field of 68 Media Network. My name is Rob Doster. I have Terrence Oglesby with me who hit, 906 calories, worked out for 78 minutes, decided that he was going to be 5 minutes late for this broadcast. And then we have John Fanta, who just so happens to be sitting in a building that has seen 17 national champions, 6 on the men's side over the course of its tenure.
And they're still begging for money.
Still begging
for money.
And Fanta is going to be calling the UConn East Texas A&M State Commerce, whatever they're called now, game tonight in Gamble Pavilion. Gentlemen, it's been a wild week in college basketball. I have broadcasted 6 games in the last 13 days, which is great. Way more than I should be allowed to be breaking down X's and O's in basketball and analyzing shit that is happening. But it was fun. It was a great experience. Charleston tip-off, or the Field of 68 tip-off in Charleston was a blast. I know you guys have kind of been all over. Finn, I'll just go to you first. 2 weeks into the season, give me your number one biggest headline that came from either this weekend, the last 8 days. Just where's your number one talking point right now in the world of college hoops?
That Matt Painter continues to be one of the very best coaches in the sport, and that Purdue's not slowing down post Zach Edey. When you've won at the level that they won at with Zach, and it's early, but when you've won at that level, that creates more winning habits.
Yes.
And Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer were so important to the whole operation. You know, as much as Zach dominated, when we looked at last year, guys, we came into last season and we were saying, will the backcourt play progress? Will they be able to handle pressure, T.O.? And they did. They handled it. They handled it well. In the preseason, I think a couple of us were scratching our heads when we're hearing, Trey Kaufman-Wren's going to be poised for a huge year. But you kind of trust Matt Painter. You wonder how much of this is coach speak, how much of this is real. The fact is Trey Kaufman-Wren went for close to 30 points against Alabama. I think Alabama, guys, I think they're going to be a very, very good basketball team. But right now they're trying to figure it out. And you do wonder sometimes, do we just create an incredible value of a team, Terrence, based on what they did in the previous NCAA tournament? How easy is that to do versus it's a new season, there's kinks to work out. But one thing's for certain, Terrence Oglesby, the Purdue Boilermakers made a big statement Friday night that they belong in the top echelon. We weren't sure if they belonged in that. We find out even more tonight. How about this ball game? Purdue at Marquette from Milwaukee this evening, one of the biggest games of the year thus far.
You might as well turn up on FS1 at 7 o'clock and just roll it right through. Am I right, Fanta? Just roll it right through.
Watch Connecticut. Yep.
Yeah, watch UConn, watch John Fanta, or listen to John Fanta, watch UConn, then move on to the main course. I'm sorry to say it. Purdue Marquette. That is going to be a monster game. You got 2 players that could be first-team All-Americans when the season's over in that game. That's going to be so much fun to watch. Kam Jones, that one of the storylines is Kam Jones. He's been spectacular to start the year. And I said it last night, and I'm going to say it again right now. Like, I think the biggest conundrum we kind of fall into is how much is a returning player going to have to turn into the guy that departed, meaning – Tyler Kolek's gone. Is Kam Jones going to be a playmaker in the same vein as Tyler Kolek? No, Kam Jones just needs to be more Kam Jones, and that's what he's been so far. He has been able to find some of these creases. That's my biggest takeaway from Marquette so far is Kam Jones is going to be very much a finalist in some of these Player of the Year awards, and if things continue the way they're going, because he's been that spectacular for that team. My other takeaway is you mentioned Alabama. That's a big one, but go about 150 miles down the road. The Auburn Tigers, on this day of our Lord, November 19th, 2024, is the best team of the season right now. Right now. I don't think they're going to be the best team later in the season. I think right now, you talk about the size, the versatility, one of the most productive 5 men over the last 2 seasons in Johni Broome. You have an emerging freshman guard in Tahad Pettiford, who they have the luxury of not needing every night. They needed him against Houston, though. And it provides some versatility for them and what they can do when attacking opposing teams. So Auburn's a big story. I think Gonzaga is an equally big story. Go down last night, win at San Diego State at the Viejas. Not an easy place to play, I can promise you, and won by double figures. Opened up with an ass whooping of Baylor to open up the season. Mark Few has gotten close so many times This could be the year that they win the whole darn thing.
Wow.
So I want to push back on something that you guys talked about last night on After Dark. It was you two gentlemen and the lovely CJ Moore. You were talking about the best team in college basketball.
Pure point guard, CJ Moore. Pure point guard.
Pure point guard. Can't shoot it.
No, can't shoot it, but he can handle it. Great passer.
The rock. Yeah, sees the floor, understands the game. They call him heady, maybe deceptively athletic. Terrence.
CJ said Auburn and T.O. said Kansas.
And there was a little bit of conversation in there about Houston, and not a single one of you mentioned Gonzaga as the best team in college basketball, and that is something that's baffling.
Did I not?
Right? No, no one mentioned
Gonzaga?
it. No one mentioned it, and you might have
meant to. My bad.
The conversation just never kind of made it there. But for my money, I all due respect to Bruce Pearl, all due respect to Auburn. Kansas is really good. The team that you're about to see, Fanta, I think has some kinks to work out still. They haven't quite hit their ceiling, but I still think that they're still really good. The parity in college basketball should be fun because a lot of these teams in like that top 8 to 10 range, there's not much separation there, and it's because they're all really good as opposed to being like there's not really anyone that's going to be great. But I just don't understand how at this point in the season, right? There's an argument to be made that Gonzaga has the best point guard in college basketball. I don't know how many teams have as effective of a post duo as Graham Ike and Braden Huff when you combine them, right? There's some, but I think that duo right there puts you in the top 5, right? You look at their wings. You got Nolan Hickman, who has been there for 37 years, averages 15 a game, shoots 40% from 3, really solid off-guard role player, good vet, right? You got Caleb Battle, who is coming in as a guy that can go out and get your 25 on any given night. And if you listen to what he's saying, that's kind of accepted what his role is with that team. Ben Gregg is big and spaces the floor. Michael Ajayi can play the 3 or the 4. He spaces the floor. He's a really good athletic ring. Dusty Stromer doesn't miss if you leave him open. And you put all and I'm missing someone there too off the top of my head. I don't have the roster in front of me.
You hit everybody but the manager right there, Rob. You're good. Keep going. You got
so it's the balance. It's the fact that they've all been there. It's the fact that they got Mark Few. You know, I think when you look at least when I'm looking at teams, I want to see great point guard play, great 5-man play, and good versatile role-playing wings. And I think you have all of that stuff, plus a guy who's a game changer in battle. I just, in this moment, I think that it's clear that Gonzaga is the best team in college basketball. They beat Baylor by 38. They beat an Arizona State team that looks like they might be a little bit better than people expected, right? Last night, they beat up on a good San Diego State team on the road in Viejas, and they didn't even get out of third gear in that game. I just, right now, if you want to make the argument that they've kind of hit their ceiling right now, like because of there's so much returning talent on that roster, I'll hear it. But I just think right now they are clearly the best team in college basketball. If you put them on a court right now with anybody else on a neutral, I'm picking them to win. Doesn't matter who's on the other side of the floor.
Who's Gonzaga's MTE? Where are they going?
They got UConn in the Garden, which will tell us a lot about
both teams.
But they're not in like they're not in a big
MTE
event. I don't think they just schedule big games.
Yeah.
No, they're going to Atlantis. I think they're in the battle for Atlantis. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, that's right.
They got West
That
Virginia.
is a great one. They got a really good one this year.
Yeah, the battle for Atlantis.
But they should make the final of that. They, I mean, honestly, I think they'll win that event. They've got West Virginia, who got clobbered by Pittsburgh, by the way.
Yeah.
We might have an honest conversation about Pitt and Coach Capel. You see where they are in KenPom, guys?
Yeah, they're like top 15.
They're top 20.
Yeah.
Yep.
Then they got Indiana or Louisville. I mean, you know, either one of them is an adversary, but Gonzaga is better than both those teams. So the other side of the bracket could be Gonzaga, Arizona in the final there. Honestly, it should be based on when you look at it, unless Providence and Bryce Hopkins pulled off an upset. But I like Arizona and Gonzaga in Atlantis. But yeah, I mean, what I like about Mark is he schedules. You know, he's not afraid to schedule. And this is, you know, you own a win on opening night. This is impressive of any opening night performance I've ever seen. Then you go to, like, nobody goes to San Diego State, nor alone Gonzaga, but Gonzaga does. They go to Viejas, they win the game. I think what's refreshing about this sport right now is there is a real argument of who is number one. And I say this because I do think 2 weeks from now, I'm going to call my shot right now. And I called it on After Dark last night. So, Rob, I'm going to call it to you right now because I want to foresee this before it happens. Because, T.O., I know it's going to happen, and I know how Rob's wired, and I know how the nation's wired, so I'm just going to get it out of the way right now. I believe UConn will win the Maui Invitational. I don't think people should be all that shocked when that happens. Here's why. Look at the side of the bracket that they're on. They're going to play Memphis. I like P.J. Haggerty. This is a very important MTE for Penny Hardaway. He can't, 1 and 2 is tough, but could end up happening. But you'd really like to get 2. You're not beating UConn, though. You better beat either Michigan State or Colorado. You're probably going to get Colorado in the loser's bracket. Let's face it. You better win that game, Penny. UConn's going to beat Memphis. They're going to beat Michigan State. They're just better than Michigan State. Rob, they're going to make the final of the Maui Invitational. They're going to face either Auburn, Carolina, or Iowa State in all likelihood.
Can we talk about the fact that Auburn and Iowa State is a quarterfinal game in the Maui? That's a top 5 matchup, man. That's ridiculous. What is it? Top 8 now? Where is the one? I don't have the AP. Yeah, I don't have the AP top 25 in front of me, but that is a ridiculous first round game. And guess what? If you win that game, very good chance you end up playing North Carolina in the semifinals for the honor of maybe playing the back-to-back national champions in the championship game. If Auburn goes through and wins those 3 games, just give them the 1 seed now. They're so clearly going to be a 1 seed if they win this.
So that's part of my philosophy with this is, one, UConn could beat any of those teams because they're great and they're a terrific shot making team. By the way, the soft Maui rims are going to agree with shot makers. Could help Iowa State's offense, T.O. Iowa State at times offensively challenged. Maybe the rims help them out. Certainly will help R.J. Davis. But where I kind of stand, and I'm going to be on the move after I answer this question because the UConn women are coming in. Shout out to Gino Oriema, who's going for the all-time wins record tomorrow night. Where I stand is, though, 1, UConn could be the better team in that game. But 2, T.O., if UConn wins the Maui, people shouldn't be shocked when you reflect on the fact that whoever they face in the final, look at the pathway that team has to get to just to face Connecticut in the Maui final. Remember, Maui's 3 games in as many days. There's no gap day. We saw last year, remember Marquette had to get through Kansas in the semis of the Maui, and then they looked gassed at times against Purdue, and they ended up losing. Purdue was the better team, but it was only a 3-point game. You can get gassed in that Maui final. So, I think what would happen is the winner of the Maui Invitational, we could proclaim them as the best team in the country. And I'm just saying, take a deep breath because I know we're in the overreaction, the reaction clause, but I think UConn wins the Maui Invitational, and then I think we're going to have the discussion, are they the best team in the country? We're not talking about UConn's ability here, and maybe it's because all they've done is win the last 2 years, but I know you said they got some things to tinker and figure out, but they're still damn good, man. I mean, I watched their shoot-around today. They operate like an NBA team. They know how good they are. Winning's infectious. Jaden Ross and Solo Ball are ready to take this role. Liam McNeely's like a senior playing college basketball. And Caravan Steady Eddie. If Samson Johnson avoids foul trouble, Connecticut's going to keep on winning.
All right, Fanta, leave your laptop open, but go relocate to where you need to relocate. Because, T.O., I want your opinion on this. What do you make of UConn right now? Because I have some thoughts on it, and I'll respond to what you say. But where do you – because it feels like with all of these other top 10 teams, we've had some kind of conversation about them because they've played somebody. UConn hasn't played them. Yeah, their big games in the non-conference are backloaded, closer to December and the start of the Big East season. So where are you on UConn right now?
I have no opinion on UConn. They've played Sacred Heart, who's 336 on KenPom, New Hampshire, who's 356 on KenPom, Lemoyne, who's 341st on KenPom, and East Texas A&M, Commerce, Christie, God knows where that school's at tonight, and they're 352nd. I have zero opinion. We knew that they were going to be good. We know they're going to be good. They've played nothing. So that's not taken away from them. I like Coach Sacred Heart, great guy. That all being said, they haven't played anybody. So what am I to measure it against?
So here's
I've got nothing. We know Solo Ball coming up and being a physical point guard. We knew he could do that. We know he's athletic. We know that Liam McNeely's talent. We know all these guys are talented. They've played nobody. And to be honest with you, I like the scheduling idea because you look at the quadrant system. They're beating the shit out of teams by 40, literally, and that's kind of what we said needed to happen. Plus, you're bringing in, 4 new starters? CJ Moore said it yesterday. 4 new starters are 4 new starters. You're going to have some tune-up games. They beat the brakes off these teams via tune-up games. They're going to beat the brakes off of East Texas A&M tomorrow. Then I'll be able to tell you after Maui what I think about UConn. So I got nothing for you right now.
Here's where I'll push back on saying they beat the brakes off of them. I've watched all
40 points, 40 points. 40 points.
But if you go back, like it takes them about 25 minutes to really
hell, Rob, every game starts out 0-0.
No, I know, but listen, it's like they were trailing New Hampshire late in the first half, right? They didn't really pull away from I'm blanking, who'd they just play?
Lemoyne.
They didn't pull away from Lemoyne until early in the second half. They didn't really pull away from Sacred Heart really until early in the second half. And I think a lot of that final score result is one, that staff is really smart when it comes to the metrics and it comes to the math. They understand they got to beat these teams by 1 billion to be able to help with their metrics. And they're not playing they're leaving these guys in until the end of the game to be able to run up the score. And that's what you have to do at this point. But there are a lot of there are some growing pains, I think, with that team right now. And I'm a little. That's why
you schedule 4 teams in the 4,000.
Exactly.
But also one of the things, one of the players is Aiden Mahaney. Yes. Aiden Mahaney hasn't figured it out yet. And remember, if you say, well, he's never going to figure it out, well, you're wrong, because I think he will. It took Tristan Newton 3 months to figure out how to be a UConn guard. And at one point, they lost 6 of 8. I don't think this team's going to do that. I think they have too much other talent around them. I think what's interesting about Connecticut is the last 2 games, this is something I'm looking at tonight. They've started 0 for 9 from 3 in each of the last 2 games. So that's kind of unique. And then I think Samson Johnson's got to stop fouling, or else that's going to be a tough spot.
That's what he does. That's what he's got an issue when it comes to picking up fouls. I will say this, and then we're going to get to a break here in just a second.
But also in his defense, you're playing Lemoyne and New Hampshire. If you bump guys, they're going to fly just because there's a size difference. There's not guys. They haven't played anybody.
No, I know, and I'm with you. And it's hard to kind of assess them at this point because they haven't played anyone. But
there's no point. There's no point in assessing them.
There's things that they definitely have to improve on. And I promise you that and you probably saw it in shoot around today or practice today, Fanta. I promise you that it's not everything is not peaches and cream right now when it comes to those workouts for
who is it for though? Who is it for? And by the way, before we end
Gonzaga right now, because Mark Few doesn't really have to do all that much. He's got seniors everywhere that been around.
Okay, yeah, it's true, but I will say this. We've seen Gonzaga teams then face a WCC and just not be the same once they get to the tournament because they didn't face that same level of competition. So that's the tough part with Gonzaga. The last word I'm going to say on this is twofold. Number one, maybe we're not talking about Kansas enough because we're evaluating them as number 1 and AJ Storr and Zeke Mayo and Rylan Griffin. It hasn't all fully meshed together yet. They've still won. All they've done is win. And number 2, let's not discount Houston, who lost to an Auburn team that had Tahad Pettiford go nuclear. And LJ Cryer had a bad night from the floor. I'm going to keep talking about Houston because I still think they're one of the best 5 or 6 teams in college basketball.
Yep, I agree. All right, we're going to get to a quick break right here. When we come back, I'm going to ask you guys about the Blue Bloods and who is actually the best of the Blue Bloods. If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM for the season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets. Go download the BetMGM app and use the code FIELD today. Who needs Trevor and Dagan when I could just sit here and produce this stuff by myself? I'm going to go ahead and call myself
situation right now.
I'm going to call myself the MVP of the Field of 68 right now.
God.
All right. All right.
Hey, the self-praise on this network is second to none.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Look, no one else pats me on the back, so I got to pat myself on the back. Okay. Kentucky. I want to talk about Kentucky here.
Love it.
I have the game we were going to play is Fact or Fiction. Is Kentucky the best of the Blue Bloods? I think that we all agree it's probably Kansas, right, out of that group right now. But where do you stand on what this Kentucky team can be, T.O., and kind of what they're ceiling? Me and Fana talked a long time about this at the Champions Classic. I want your opinion on it. I haven't heard you talk about Kentucky yet.
I think they're a top 15 team in the country, and they're going to be that all year long. I think they're going to end as a top 15 team in the country. They're a lot closer to their ceiling than a lot of these other teams that are adjusting, just because there's so many old players. You know what? Watching Mark Pope orchestrate that Duke game was pretty cool, and kind of predicting what was going to happen. He knew the penetration was going to come to the top and told his guys to go in, and Oweh ends up with a steal. Like, that was big time stuff. They're going to be in every game, and they're going to be in every game consistently. Is Andrew Carr going to be able to bring you to a Final Four and national championship? It's a legit question. Who's going to be their guy with consistency? So far, Andrew Carr's been great, but like some of the other guys, like Amari Williams has been awesome, but doesn't shoot it. Lamont Butler's 1 of 6 from 3 this year. The thing with this Kentucky team is you know exactly what you're going to get right now. That's kind of my only pullback. I do love the team. I do love watching them play. I love watching Mark Pope call the game. I love how they compete. However, I do have some hesitation about their top end potential, just because I feel like we're really close to as good as they're going to get right now. That's scary. Even though they didn't shoot it well against Duke, they'll have games where they shoot it really well. They'll be in every game all season long. They will not get blown out one time. They will win 25 plus games. It's to be determined, but when we get to tournament time, like, can the sum of the parts be greater than the pieces, or whatever the saying is? That's kind of where we're going to be making the argument for Kentucky. I love this team. I love how they play together.
I think you like them.
Final Four potential for sure. I just wonder if they're close to their ceiling. That's my biggest concern.
So, Fanda, here's if I have a concern about them, my concern is that this win might have inflated expectations a little bit. And what I mean by that is, I think Kentucky fans kind of came into this year and like, if we play a fun style and we're kind of in that mix for top 25, or we'll make a little bit of noise in the SEC, like, that's good. I'm in. Like, I can get on board with that. And then you go out in the Champions Classic and you get this win and you beat Duke and you beat Cooper Flag and you beat a team that I think is probably going to be 1, 2, 3, somewhere around there when you get to January or February, right? Has this changed the level of expectation? And if they end up as a 4, let's just say they're a 4 seed and they get to the Sweet 16. If we would have told you that in October, Kentucky fans would have been jumping for joy, right? If you're telling them that now, then maybe it's kind of like, well, that's it. We're not going to be a little bit more. Do you know what I'm saying?
Since when is Big Blue Nation rational? They want to win the national championship. They always want to win the national championship.
Yeah.
If the worst thing that came from beating Duke was your expectations heightened, so be it. Mark Pope wants high expectations. He understands what the roadmap is at Kentucky. And remember, 2 years ago at this very time, the Connecticut Huskies were 21st in KenPom, and they ended up winning the national championship. It's a long season. Part of the thing where I push back on the ceiling for Kentucky is this. Jackson Robinson, he's only going to get better as the year goes on. The lights were too bright for him at the Champions Classic. He didn't handle it well.
Did he make it? Did he miss the plane to Atlanta? I think he missed the flight.
Well, yeah, he did. And you know what? I think he takes that to heart. I'd be pissed off if people were saying that about me. He's going to be better. He'll get better as the year went on, as the year goes on. Kobe Brea, I thought, showed some flashes, but at times I'm wondering, like, where's his presence? You know, what's nice is, T.O., you could say that about the ceiling and about the win over Duke, but your ceiling almost is painted different colors when you have the kind of depth that they have. So it could be a different guy every game. Here's the deal. I thought it was a positive for Kentucky. I thought it was a positive for Duke that they played in the game that they lost. I think it's going to fuel Duke all season long. But Kentucky, if they make the second weekend in the NCAA tournament, this season is regarded as a resounding success because they haven't done that since 2019. If I'm a Kentucky fan, I'm pumped up right now because I have a coach. I have an X's and O's master. I have a guy who took me. People do not talk about this enough. I'm going to beat this drum until it can't be beat anymore. Mark Pope took BYU into the hardest conference of college basketball and had them hovering around the top 25 all season long. Don't tell me he doesn't know how to coach. Did you watch that mini movie that Kentucky put out from the game? That guy knows how to coach his ass off.
How awesome was that, by the way?
great piece of content. Great job by
Mhm.
Kentucky. You're never getting that under the previous regime. If I'm a Kentucky fan, I'm rejoicing because Cal had his good days, but it has run its course. It was overdue by several years. And right now, I don't know what John Calipari is doing in Arkansas. I'm not a buyer of Arkansas. I'm a buyer of Kentucky. And if I'm a Kentucky fan, that's what I'm going up against this year.
That's what I was actually going to bring up and ask you guys, because I've never seen such a remarkable, like, Calipari, the man at Kentucky, speaking wisdom, a little bitter at Kentucky, and goes to Arkansas and he's like holding court with got to be 5 or 10 media folk. And like, it's almost like a sideshow.
Mhm.
That's how it comes off. That's how it comes off to me. It's like, you're no longer the main show. And I don't think he's okay with it.
Like he's like battling for attention. Did you see him the other day?
Yeah, it's so strange. Like, it's a really weird deal, man.
Like asking fans to
Use
come
their
to the
tickets.
games, use their tickets. If you're not going to use your ticket, give it to your neighbor or whatever. And I think that we know what Arkansas is as a fan base, how passionate they are, how crazy their fans are, and how loud Bald Walton Arena can get when it gets packed, right? Like that, everybody knows that. It's not a secret. That's one of the craziest buildings that you're going to get and one of the best environments that you're going to get in college basketball. But I also think at the end of the day, it's also a more traditional SEC school where even though it's November, even though basketball started, and even though their football team is not really all that great, it's still like football season.
Yes.
So if you have a game on a Saturday afternoon,
You're not
even if
getting
your
people.
football team sucks, like a lot of those guys are probably still saying, yeah, well, do I want to go watch Arkansas beat up on some mid-major that they actually struggle with? Or am I going to sit at home and watch like Georgia, Tennessee? You know, and I think a lot of those fans are like, oh, yeah, I'll just sit at home and watch Georgia, Tennessee. That seems like a more entertaining way to spend 3 hours of my life.
Especially when they're playing like Pacific, and, you know, Troy was actually hanging around with them till the very end. But like,
Yeah, Troy hung around with them, Pacific hung around with them, Lipscomb hung around with them, and they got beat by Baylor in a game where Cal kind of admitted before the like after the game, he was like, yeah, we didn't practice against the zone before playing Baylor. What are we doing? What is that? I don't know, man. Like I was very in. I've said this a lot, and Kentucky fans.
just
welcome to
same
everybody else's problems. Welcome
It's
to
just
everybody.
the same thing. Like I'm done going down the same pathway with Cal. I think I know he's a Hall of Famer. I know he's a hell of a coach, but you've got to prove that you're different. How is this Arkansas team different than any of the past ones in the recent years at Kentucky? They're really not. And you know, here's the thing. You're in the best conference in college basketball this season, bar none.
Yes.
Because Alabama's damn good. Auburn's even better than Alabama now. Tennessee's a top 10 team. Kentucky might be a top 10 team. Florida looks like a top 15 team. Texas A&M could be a top 20 team. And Arkansas looks like they might be 7th or 8th in this league.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really damn good league. Hey, by the way, I'm going to vow this right now. I was looking at the schedule right last night. I think our podcast has to do 1, if not 2 trips to an SEC game this year for the first time. The three of us have never been in a building for an SEC game. It's time. This is the year. This is the year. We got to make it happen.
Do we want to go to Cal's return to Kentucky?
I think it'd be amazing. I mean,
I
our
think that
show.
would be good. I would honestly, I think I would rather go. I'm pretty sure Auburn, Alabama play twice, right? And they host Auburn. Oh,
Need to go to Thompson Bowling.
Auburn hosts Alabama on the last Saturday of the regular season.
Oh my goodness gracious!
That could be for the SEC.
Wow.
That could be
Holy
for the
cow,
SEC regular season title. Real quick, just the last thing I want to ask you, and then we can kind of move on from the SEC is how has your opinion of the way that the conference kind of stacks up changed? Because I remember when we did our SEC preview, we basically said it's Alabama, then it's everybody else. And
Yeah.
I don't think any of us would say Alabama right now is the best team in that league. Theo?
Not right now. They're not. I would give the benefit of the doubt to Auburn. I would throw Kentucky in the mix, and
Tennessee.
Alabama's going to take a second. I think people forget, like, Chris Youngblood's going to be a big piece of what they're doing.
Yep.
So Auburn, Kentucky, guys, probably not Mississippi State in that same tier, but holy crap, I think they're good too.
Yes, and we haven't even mentioned Ole Miss. Like Ole Miss is
they're
good. They are taking a little bit of time to get all of those pieces to really come together, but that is a really good basketball team as well.
Yeah.
I not put Tennessee in the mix at the top of that league as well.
Yeah, that was the other one. Tennessee, Kentucky, Auburn right now. Those are the three that I would probably lean to. And you guys talk about an SEC environment. Go to Thompson Bowling. Or it's not, they're not calling it that anymore, but that place is lit.
I'll give you a total wild card in this league. Really wild, but don't sleep on them later this week. Big game Thursday night, sleeper game, 2 4-0 teams. Nick Davidson in Nevada meet Vanderbilt in the Charleston Classic. Winner likely gets VCU Friday night for a spot in Sunday's final. Don't sleep on Mark Byington. That was a really good hire. And I think he's going to be able to get Vandy at least playing more competently and winning some ball games in future years.
All right, we're gonna take
podcast is chaos.
Yes. Can you hear my dog barking in the background?
Did you hear my son over here screaming for me a second ago? This is chaos.
All right, so here's what we're gonna do. We all need about 90 seconds. We're gonna take a quick 90-second timeout. Hear from our sponsors. We're gonna regroup and come back. Season is in full swing. You need to make sure that you have access to the best betting tool on the market, the Rhythm app. Spelled RITHMM, is a data-backed app that uses AI and analytics to identify inefficiencies in betting lines and the player prop market that will allow you, the user, to profit. You can create customized, analytics-driven betting models tailored to your personal preferences as a bettor. Users have access to up-to-the-second against the spread data. And if you're like me and you understand pictures better than numbers on a screen, Rhythm's internal trend analysis provides you with the kind of graphs that will allow you to evaluate past results and project future performance in a visual way. Every Division I college basketball team is included in the Rhythm's metrics. Free subscribers to the Field of 68 Daily will get 25% off for a Rhythm subscription. Use the QR code on the screen to sign up or download at the link. Basketball season is back in full swing. I need to remind you guys about our partners over at Autograph, where the real college hoops fans reside. The Autograph app curates all of the best content for every sports fan and every sports fan's favorite team. Podcasts, blogs, analysis. It's all there without the nonsense from the talking heads that don't actually watch the games. And there's a bonus. Consuming content on the Autograph app earns you coins that can be redeemed for rewards for things like no-fee tickets or signed jerseys from your favorite players. There are a couple new features in the app that I need to let you guys know about as well. Autograph Replay gives you a quick-hitting summary of the previous day's news so you can keep track of all the important things going on with your favorite teams. And Autograph Rooms allows you to chat in real time with the true voices of fandom within your team's community. So go to the link in the description or scan that QR code on your screen and download the Autograph app. I will give myself
let's take a break from Rob to get some more Rob.
Yeah, I think I'll give myself like a B- on the production of there. I cut one of those commercials off a little bit early. I left the graphic up over the top during the start of the commercial. I'm trying. Maybe I guess I can't fire Dagan and Trevor.
Well, just like you said, Rob, you're much better with pictures than you are with words.
Yeah, that's 100% true.
Rob Doster, big on coloring books, even at the ripe old age of 35 or whatever you are.
I do enjoy good coloring. I was just coloring on my daughter over there today.
There you go.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's relaxing to get out there, and I drew a nice tree. I'm very good at drawing trees. Big tree guy too. Yeah, big tree guy. I want to ask you guys. So the Big East, we talked about this a little bit on After Dark last week, Fanda. But I do feel like the Big East got off to a rocky start, and Georgetown and Villanova have not exactly set the world on fire. But I think overall it's been a little bit more promising than I think the doomsday scenario of the first couple days of the season would have indicated, right? Like Butler got themselves a win over SMU. We saw Xavier get a nice win against the Wake Forest team that a lot of us had hyped up in the offseason. Marquette going on the road to Maryland and picking up a nice win there. I think Creighton has looked pretty damn good for kind of what they are. So where do you stand right now on the Big East?
The Big East is a good league. It is not a great league this year. Last year, It was a fun league, and that didn't result in units. You know, only 3 teams in the NCAA tournament was an embarrassment for the league, whether they got shorted or slighted or whatnot. I can confidently say that this league will get more than 3 bids in the tournament this year, that they will get 5 bids at least.
Mm-hmm.
And they might get a 6th if a team figures it out, but I think it'll be a 5 or a 6 bid conference. Here's the deal in this
Who
league.
are the 5?
UConn,
Creighton, Marquette,
Xavier, and St. John's.
Yes.
Okay.
You know, it's interesting, guys. Somebody's got to finish at the bottom. Like, there have to be bottom dwellers, whether you want to hear it or not. You could say that all 11 teams are great, but it's just not the case here. As long as Kyle Neptune is the coach, this is what Villanova is going to be. Seton Hall's start to the season, that's been rough. You know, they lost to Hofstra, they lost to Fordham. The problem with that start to the year is, you know, Shaheen Holloway is a good enough coach that Seton Hall's going to pick a couple teams off potentially in January or February because they're going to get better as the year goes on, I think. And I know Shaheen will get a team better as the year goes on. So that could throw your metrics off just a little bit. It really could. You think about this. Seton Hall's top 100 KenPom. I think in KenPom offense right now, they're 263. I don't know if I've ever seen a team in KenPom be top 100 with an offense that's sub 250 ever in my time following. It's because they're 10, top 10 defense. Exactly. By the way, they face VCU on Thursday. VCU's 9th in defense. You better learn how to guard, buddy, in that game. Both teams can really guard. There might not be 100 points scored in that one either. Here's the deal. Some keys to this league. Number 1, St. John's, massive week. In the Bahamas, Baylor Thursday, either Tennessee or Virginia, and then Asa Newell, Silas Damari, and Georgia on Sunday morning. Key resume game for both the SEC and the Big East. Georgia appears to be better. We're going to find out more on Sunday. Mm-hmm. St. John's guards come at you in waves. Kadari Richmond, Davon Smith. RJ Lewis right now is playing like an all Big East first team selection. Xavier found defense against Wake. They defended their tails off. I just saw Paul Frischner. Shout out to Paul. He did a phenomenal job down at Charleston. Down the field.
Okay. Phenomenal strong.
Okay. Xavier found their defense. They won by 15. You know, they didn't beat Wake TO. They commanded them. I think this league, the key questions are this. Number 1, when Bryce Hopkins comes back, and I think Bryce could play tonight against Delaware State. I haven't seen the news this afternoon. I haven't been following. If not, I think he's going to play next week. I think Providence is the key when Hopkins comes back. They have Oklahoma in the game 1 of Atlantis, then potentially Arizona. They're going to be an underdog in that one, but it's an opportunity. And Arizona doesn't look great right now, fellas. And then I think Butler, they tripped up to Austin Peay, but Jameel Telford, Pierre Brooks, like that team looks like they're formidable enough that they could put a little run together, and their non-con schedule's manageable. They've got Northwestern and MTE next week, and then either UNLV or Mississippi State. They'll be outmatched against Mississippi State, but they could at least get one win there. I think it's a good league. I don't think it's a great league, but I think if I power rank the leagues right now, I'd say SEC 1, I'd say Big 12 2, I'd say Big 10 3, and then I would put the Big East over the ACC.
That
you think the Big 10's 3? I could not disagree more.
Well,
I was waiting for that.
The Big 10 put results together over the weekend.
I would have. I think the SEC and the Big 12 are 1 and 2, and then I don't think any of those other 3 have really stood out at this point because I think too many.
Okay, so then fine. You know what? Then I'll put the Big East 3 because the Big East has the back-to-back national champions and 5 top 25 teams.
Yeah, I would probably have the Big East and ACC 3rd and 4th, and Big.
I'm okay with that. I'll let that fly. I'll let that fly.
I honestly don't think there's much difference between the.
Who's the third best team in the ACC? Who's 3 in the ACC? Who's 3?
Louisville, baby. Wait for the bounce back. Just wait for the bounce back. Buy the dip, Fanta. Buy the dip. I will just say also, I have a confession.
Hold on. You got Duke, North Carolina, each with 1 loss. Pitt's 5-0. There's your 3rd best team if you want to get down to brass tacks. Miami's 3-0. NC State 3. NC State 4-0. Notre Dame 3-0. Stanford 4-0. Virginia 3-0. Syracuse 3-0. Like what? There's 18 teams in the league.
The ACC is the ACC.
It's better than the Big guys. It's better than the Big 10. It's better than the Big 10.
I tend to agree. I think Pitt is the one where I think there's actually like a possibility that could be a real thing.
I do too. Yeah. I like Pitt too.
Yeah, that's one of those.
Do an ACC Media Day. I told you guys they returned a lot.
Mhm. You are not wrong about that.
Remember,
I do have to
remember. Sorry to cut you off one more time, but remember the Mountain West got 6 teams in last year. They're not getting 6 teams in this year. There's going to be some.
You take in the bids from the Pac-12. That's no longer a thing. Like there's going to be more teams.
Yep. I have a confession. When I put together my top 25 this week, I put it together. I meant to have St. John's in the top 25. I put together the list. When I sent it over to our my social graphic designer, there was no top 25 St. John's team on that list, and I have been getting raked over the coals by St. John's fans, and justly, it's justified.
Deservedly so.
Yeah, deservedly so. Hand up. That was an honest mistake.
Rick Pitino's going to throw you into the river. He knows people. He could dump you off.
he knows the guy. No, St. John's has been I don't want to call them a surprise, but they've pleasantly lived up to kind of the expectations and the hype that they had this offseason. Kadari's awesome. Davon Smith is a lot of fun. And RJ Lewis, he was so good on Saturday on Sunday against New Mexico. He was so good against them. So
and guys, New Mexico's good too. Like they're not great, but they're a good team, and they beat them pretty soundly.
It was like watching them like hold off little brother, right? Like New Mexico kept trying to make a run, and St. John's was like, we're just kind of in cruise control here. We're going to keep you away. All right. So we touched on this just a little bit earlier, right? But when it comes to the best player in college basketball right now, I would be hard pressed to pick anyone other than Kam Jones with the way that he has been playing. And I love Braden Smith. I think Mark Sears will be great. He hasn't really put it together yet. Same thing with RJ Davis. I think he will get there.
Yeah.
The Braden Smith and Ryan Nembhard, like maybe the 2 best point guards in college basketball. Johni Broome has been awesome. Ryan Kalkbrenner had 49 points, right, in a game, 20 for 22 from the floor. He's been terrific. Hunter Dickinson is Hunter Dickinson. But I think if I'm starting a team from scratch, my first pick right now might be Kam Jones. And I feel like, I don't know. I feel like that might be a little bit of a hot take, Tio. Where do you stand?
He's been great. Johni Broome needs consideration. Kalkbrenner needs consideration. And guys like Braden Smith too.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is me hyping up tonight's game because it's going to be awesome. But there's another part, like the dude had 10 assists and 1 turnover against Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
You could walk out of tonight's game. There's going to be a lot to take away from this game. I can already tell this is going to be a terrific game between Purdue and Marquette. Marquette's lost the last 2 years to Purdue. I like the Golden Eagles at home. Fiserv Forum tonight. I think you're catching Purdue in the right moment. I'm going to just lean Marquette by maybe a bucket. But I think one other guy I would just put up there that is not going to get national attention, but I think he could as the year goes on. His numbers right now are really gaudy. Maxime Renaud out of Stanford is putting up some humongous numbers for the Cardinal. Keep an eye on Maxime. He's
ACC Player of the Week this week.
Yeah, he's really performing at a high level. I love what Maxine's doing. I'm with you. Johni Broome, I will keep beating that drum. He deserves it. And, Kalkbrenner had the best individual performance of the season thus far. So, let's keep talking about those bigs because the big men right now in this sport are still absolutely phenomenal. But watch out for Renaud out at Stanford. I'll tell you what, that was a really good coaching hire because it looks like Kyle Smith's going to do a nice job at Stanford. Stanford basketball is going to be back on the map in the ACC.
Jalen Blakes is averaging like 15 and 5 for him. He's really embraced like a bigger role. Tio,
John Tonje for Wisconsin has been freaking awesome.
Yeah, but all he does is like he goes to the line and gets fouled, man. Like he's been really good and a little bit eye-opening.
I'm not saying National Player of the Year. I'm saying he's been awesome. And they just had a big couple of wins. So.
They beat the brakes off of Arizona. Like I don't think Wisconsin is really all that good. Like I think that they are a solid team, right? I think that they are a tournament team.
They're a Big Ten tournament team.
Yeah, I think they're a little bit better than I had given them credit for heading into the season. I actually I can't remember who I did the Wisconsin offseason grades video with, but I think it was with Ant Wright. I remember saying like, this team might be better than I actually give them credit for because of what happened in the offseason. But they're good. They're a tournament team. I'm a little worried about that.
Coach of the week, Speedy Claxton at Hofstra, beat Seton Hall and won a bye game over UMass. Congrats, Speedy. We love you.
All right, T.O., I'm going to give you 1 minute here. Explain to me and explain. We talked about this with Kalkbrenner. Explain to the people that are listening why Johni Broome is so good and what makes him special.
He's just improved his versatility every single year. I saw him play at Morehead State, and it was all back to the bucket. I'm bigger than the rest of everybody else, and I did a great job of sealing. The next year, he transfers to Auburn. He turns into this guy who can run the floor and catch the ball pretty much anywhere. He's got terrific hands, and he plays well beside these semi-erratic guards that Auburn has. Then last year, he added a three-point game. So now he's able to, at least he didn't take a ton of them, but he was shooting some of them and it turned out to go well. This year, those numbers are up. This year, he is not shooting it great from three right now, but he's going to continue shooting the ball. So I think it's going to be fine. He just does everything. And he has such a good feel for how Bruce likes to play. I think he's going to be in the running for first team All-American too. And the better Auburn is throughout the course of the year, they're great right now. Throughout the course of the year, how that continues to evolve is going to determine eventually where he's at the end of the season in terms of National Player of the Year races.
Yep. Listen, guys, it's been a lot of fun. This was one of the more enjoyable DTF podcasts we had because our rundown was literally like, here's like 4 things. Let's just see if we go. We'll just figure it out and we'll go on the way. Always good to see you, Fana. Make sure that you keep your head in the screen so that we can't see the practice going on back there with UConn. I don't need Gino coming up and biting your head off. Have a great call tonight. Marquette, Purdue. It's happening in about 5 hours from the time that we are signing off from this pod. So for Terrence Oglesby, for John Fanta,